Yak, Dr. Lindy, Dr. Yak, thank you so much for joining me today. To our listeners and people watching on YouTube, um, uh, my first guest, this is the first proper interview episode. Last week was a bit of a intro by me. I've got Yak here. Yak, I want to say to you firstly, you know, thanks so much for taking a chance on me, man. I mean, I'm untried, I'm untested. I'm not a professional interviewer.
True story.
You've got a big following and a big profile online and everywhere else. So thanks so much for just risking it on me. I don't know whether it's family or whatever, but I really appreciate it. Before we start, I just want to share some feedback with the listeners and the viewers about my first episode that I put up last week, which was me. If you haven't watched it, go and check it out on the channel on YouTube. But it's essentially me sitting at my veranda at my house.
Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah. And so I just want to give everyone a flavor of the types of friends and followers I have. So I'm going to read out verbatim my favorite feedback from a confidant, right? So this is verbatim. It says, remove the pot plant. Don't wear that white t-shirt again. It looks like you just woke up out of bed. Sound a little more enthusiastic. Your tone is way too serious. It's like a heavy 13 minutes to watch. People don't want to watch something where the host sounds like he works for SARS. You're talking about serious bleep, and you have your kids paint on the pole next to you while you're in sleep mode. So yeah, that's the feedback on first episode. I can't wait for the feedback.
Jeez, that's who's that? Friends and family.
With friends like that, who needs enemies, right? No, but jokes aside, I am super grateful for that kind of feedback. I don't want sugarcoating. I mean, at the end of the day, I took a shot in the dark with this thing. There's an idea. There's always going to be room for improvement. This is episode 1.1. So let's get into it. Thank you so much again, Yak.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
No further questions.
No further questions from you, but feel free to ask questions. Right?
No, of course, yeah. Are you allowed to say who gave that feedback?
Look, we'll check later. I don't want to offend anybody overnight, but I'm sure this person would be comfortable disclosing their name. I'm going to start off. Now, you know I've been into this podcast for a while. I've always been telling you I want to start a not and it's been an idea. And so I've been like researching and trying to brush up my skills on conversation and things like that, right? Not actively, but wherever I see a podcast, I try and listen to what the person's saying and figure out. And coincidentally, there was this TED talk that came up literally last week on my feed. And the person said there's an experiment that you must go out and ask strangers. So I'm going to ask this question, and I want you to please be open and honest with me. And I promise I'll be open.
And the rest of your followers? Yeah, okay.
Just for this question.
Yeah.
I also want to make it clear that I said to the people when we introduced this podcast that I wanted unscripted and I wanted authentic. So I didn't send you a script. I didn't send you a list of questions even. So you're going into this a bit blind. So I can imagine it's a bit, uncharted waters.
Daunting.
And I want to just assure you, if there's any question that you're not comfortable answering.
No further questions.
Just say, look, let's move on. I'm not even going to say we can cut it out. We can just move on.
Yeah.
If need be, we can cut it out. But this first question, I'm asking you, please, try your best.
It's like he's asking for money for airtime or something. All these memories are coming back.
and I'm happy. Well, Yak is alluding to memories because we basically grew up together. But here's the question.
Well, okay. You carry on with your question. I was going to actually give people our backstory. Most people know how we are related, first of all, or also the history that we have together as not just as professionals, because we did actually work together in Mpumalanga and ComServe.
Yeah.
No, you were in first year post ComServe, and then I got into ComServe when Yufti got into ComServe.
Okay.
But anyway, I digress. So Yash is my mother's sister's son. So he's not like my cousin, like Makazi vibes. He's biologically related to me. And we basically grew up together because most of our family, most of our cousins were actually here up in Johannesburg. And we always make a joke that there's Joburg cousins and then there's the Natal cousins, and there's a different demeanor between the two. And I wouldn't actually call it demeanor because it's,
you know, like a link. There's a different link, I guess.
Yeah, like, I mean, for example, your sister and my sister, you, myself, we all went into like a medical related profession. And for purposes of this podcast, everyone else in Joburg didn't really.
Okay, that's good.
So, why did
that's useful context. Yeah, no.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then it's Durban. Then you're looking at cultural context as well, where our parents or the society as a whole more structured and geared in Natal towards, like, you know, that sort of
academics and studying,
academics and culture, and also the, you know, the predisposition of what it is to be Indian, actually. Yeah.
I was going to say you're making this very Indian now by talking about family and cousins, but it's okay. That's fine.
Well, you are my cousin.
And I said we want to keep it authentic. But here's the first question, Yak.
Yes.
When was the last time you cried in front of someone? And tell me about it.
And I must tell you about it.
And I promise I'll tell you about mine.
I got to think back pretty hard because I haven't really in a while.
I assumed there was going to be an easy answer, but anyway.
No, not to say I'm not a crier, but I think of late I've been more resilient towards not showing outward
emotions.
I'm going to say, like I was going to call it a flaw of an emotion, but it's not really. I don't think crying is a flaw, but I've been resilient more inwardly.
Okay.
So maybe you want to.
When was the last time you cried in front of someone?
I've got to think about it. This is the thing. I mean, it's not for lack of crying, but I think it would actually be with my friends Elton and Claudia.
Okay.
They unfortunately had a incident that happened to them of criminal nature, and I went there early in the morning because they called me. And when I got there, they were very frazzled. They're very emotionally stable people. But just for me to see them that way, it made me very emotional as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was recently, like?
Yeah, maybe about a month, 2 months ago now.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing. I appreciate it. Now I have to answer. Mine was easy. It was
just now before we start press play.
Well, I mean, look, it was when I had to tell my manager, my boss at work, that my mom had been diagnosed with cancer. This was a few months ago, and I wasn't really. It was unexpected. That's the funny thing about crying in front of somebody else. For me personally, the only times it's ever happened, I can probably count on. Well, I don't know actually, but it's unexpected. And so when I had to tell my manager this because, you know, there were going to be changes in my life. And when I saw her reaction, it was one of such deep sorrow that I didn't want somebody to feel sorry for me. And then suddenly I started choking up. So yeah, that's. But
if I can ask you, I mean, it's your manager. I don't know what the personal relationship with your manager is, but from the time, I mean, what was the difference between, I mean, your mom telling you that she had cancer as opposed to you telling somebody else? There obviously is a deeper relationship with your mother. How come you didn't cry then as opposed to when you're telling someone like your manager?
If you think about it, I would have found out about my mom much earlier. So I'm not saying that wasn't.
So
I didn't
time
cry
to
then.
process emotion.
But my question is, when was the last time I cried in front of her? So that was the more recent thing.
Oh, so you did cry when your mom told?
Well, you see, I'm the one asking the question here, yeah. So
you said I'm allowed.
And yes, I did. I mean, that's natural. It's not nothing to hide about, but or feel bad about. But yeah, so that's the experiment done.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you at the end, and our listeners will tell us at the end whether the experiment worked. That question. It's a question that they say go and ask.
Experimenting on me, without my consent.
No problem. So, what was it like growing up in Maritzburg?
Irony. Well, not irony. Dramatic. What do you call it?
Coincidence?
Coincidentally, I was in Maritzburg last weekend.
Okay.
And, you know, I drove around. I went through like my childhood home and visiting parts of Maritzburg and just seeing what it was. And it was so lush and green and unkept, like very raw. And it kept reminding me of my childhood because that's what it was. It was very authentic. It was very raw. You could just hop on a bike and go drive, like cycle on the road.
Is that what you used to do as a kid?
Yeah. A lot of,
I mean, didn't you used to have some sort of gang of kids that you used to ride around with?
Yeah, our cycle gang.
And your parents would just let you loose.
Oh, they were not in the know, but I think even if they did know that we were cycling on the street, they...
Did you still use a helmet?
No, of course not.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, nowadays...
We use other form of protection.
Yeah. Okay, knee guards and things like that.
Yeah.
All right, so...
Knee guard, hey.
I mean, Maritzburg, you were there until when? From birth until...
Until 2002.
Mm-hmm.
No, actually, yeah, 2002 was when I matriculated. 2003, that's when I started engineering.
Engineering, yeah.
And then you got to... Well, we had to do our first year in Maritzburg. Then campus moved second, third year, and the rest to UKZN in Durban. So yeah, 2004 is when I left Maritzburg to come and actually stay with you at your house.
Yeah. So you mentioned engineering, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you're getting ahead of me in my chronology of things that I planned out. But
sorry,
but we'll take it back
to the future.
We'll take it back to the past, right? Okay. What's the first memory you had growing up of the career or the job you wanted to do? I'll tell you what mine was. For some reason, I wanted to be a truck driver. I was a little lighty.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
I wanted to be a truck driver. And I think maybe it's because I used to have a little toy truck that I used to pull around when I was following my grandfather in the garden while, my tata in the garden when
That's...
But, what was what can you first remember? I have a memory of you wanting to be something. So I just want to see if it correlates.
I'm going to give you like an all-encompassing answer because I obviously knew this was going to come about the name of the podcast. But to be honest, I had no aspirations to be anything.
Yeah.
I used to maybe say stuff, but when people asked me, things with expecting more of a definitive answer, I used to say things based on what I used to hear. And it was... or were you going to say astronaut?
Yeah, I was going to say astronaut. Yeah.
And why did I want to become an astronaut? Because my sister always wanted to become an astronaut.
Oh.
She was the reason we went to NASA and...
Well, that's interesting.
And Columbia and all of that.
I mean, I thought it's because your parents took you on a trip to America and then you went and visited...
They took us on a trip to America because my sister wanted to be an astronaut.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
now we know who the favorite kid is, right? I mean, did your parents take you anywhere for something you want?
Harare, Zimbabwe.
Okay, all right.
For my 7th birthday. But yeah.
So you didn't really want to be an astronaut. It was just... by osmosis.
Well, exactly, because I thought I did. I thought I wanted to be an astronaut, but I subsequently found out about this about myself is that I'm very impressionable. Is that the right term?
Yeah.
Impressionable.
Impressionable, yeah, I guess so.
Alginate.
Depends what you're trying to say, but let's hear it. Because there's a running joke in our family for the listeners, by the way, that Yak uses words.
Oh, yes.
In the absolute wrong context.
I like to use some words in order to sound osmosis.
Yeah,
you see that meme?
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, so I think
so. Astronaut was the osmosis reaction.
More than likely, yeah.
And then,
but I'm thinking about this in retrospect now because back then I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's what I thought I wanted to be. But
and you used retrospect correctly. Well
thank
done.
You.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be astronaut.
Okay, so nothing. I mean, also for context for the listeners, Yak mentioned the whole KZN, Durban, Indian family type of thing, but none of our parents, and we come from a big family of cousins, none of our parents were in healthcare. Am I right? Not one of our parents was a doctor or a dentist or anything.
Well, I wasn't a Shakun a nurse.
Yeah, but not from what we knew.
Yeah.
I mentioned this because I've been thinking about this a lot and it'll make more sense a bit later. But let's pause there. So that was Maritzburg. That was childhood. You thought you wanted to be an astronaut and you visited NASA. What about Durban? Because you moved there. Then you moved.
I wanted to be an Indian. So then I thought, let's go with them.
Really? Okay. No, you chose engineering. Why? Because of the whole NASA thing. Didn't you say you wanted to study aeronautical engineering or something?
Yeah, so I think, yes, as if memory serves me correct, I think I did apply for aeronautical engineering. I think I might have gotten into it at WITS, but then I think at some stage there was a change in.
So the astronaut thing, it still was there in mind at the end of matric and all of that. Because you applied in matric, right? You applied for engineering.
Yeah, no, of course. But I mean,
it's all a blur for you, Yak?
It is, to be honest. Life has changed much. Yeah. But
so just on a whim, there's nobody in school. There's no like career guidance counselor that comes and does an aptitude test and.
They probably did, but this is what I'm saying. Like, I had no aspirations to be anything in particular.
Did you ask your parents
what they thought I wanted to be?
What should I do, mom, dad? What did your folks do?
My mom was in the bank.
Mm-hmm.
I don't entirely know what she did there. I think she was like
the way you say
branch manager.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. My dad was environmental health inspector for the municipality
some health link there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's more like public health, I think.
Okay.
What we'd call public health now.
Yeah.
But I know he used to have, have you ever been to his office?
No.
He had like rats and like, what was it, moths? They were nailed to like like a cabinet, in a cabinet.
Taxidermy type of thing.
I'm hoping so.
Okay. So you didn't take advice from folks. You just did your own. We didn't have internet those days.
Yeah.
Like properly. Well, we did, but it was dial up and you had to make sure nobody picks up the landline.
Disturb the neighborhood.
And you just, maybe friends influenced you or not. Like there must be something. Yeah, you couldn't have just gone eeny, meeny, miny, mo engineering. And what type of engineering?
It was, so this is what I'm saying. I think it was aeronautical because of that subliminal influence. I'm calling it subliminal because
I get you.
It was, now in retrospect, I probably thought about it back then. I was like, I wonder if I can actually be an astronaut. And what's the closest thing? Aeronautical engineering. I didn't even used to call it engineering. I used to say I want to be an engineer because I thought that was the term as an engineer. And Anesh would vouch for that because he used to
it's like when people do actuarial science, then some people think you're going to be an actuarial scientist.
Yeah.
But I think you call it an actuary.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress. So you did that. You went to, tell me about Durban.
Durban was hectic because it was a little bit out of my comfort zone. I grew up in Maritzburg, very isolated. We went to Carter, and then you get exposed to like real life, being on campus especially, and lots of freedom.
Even though you were staying at our house,
even though I was staying at your house, there was lots of freedom because your parents were involved. Your dad was probably as strict as, but that was a time I remember he was almost like
mellowing,
like thawing out actually. Which I'm not blaming him on the crease.
Don't drag my dad in the podcast, please.
But there was no. I had a lot of freedom. And I didn't know what to do with it. So there was a naughty side in me that came out that...
let's say adventurous, I guess. Maybe it was the beginning of your adventures.
Maybe irresponsible would be a middle ground between those two words. Because, I did do things that were...
Okay, what, did you not attend class? We don't have to talk about anything dodgy, but you didn't go to class, you weren't paying attention.
You didn't speak at all.
You wouldn't...
Yeah, I'd skip class, I would go there. You were in our third in our triad year of doers, we call ourselves. He was on campus as well, but Yuri, if anyone knows Yuri, he's very, he's
level-headed
and I should have taken a leaf out of his book, but no, I'd see him going to class.
You should have also taken a page out of his book.
I should have taken the book.
Yeah, not just a leaf. There's no leaves in books. Yeah,
made it out of the same thing. Was it bark?
That's a perfect example of Yak using the wrong word, even though it's a 4-letter word.
We're taking a leaf out of his book or page. Yes. Yeah. Okay. No, you're right.
We've got it. Yeah. So on to engineer. So basically, you weren't paying attention.
I wasn't.
You weren't interested. You got into it because it was a subliminal.
Exactly. And when I got into it, I realized that I didn't like it. Look, I passed a few subjects, a majority. One thing that got me down, though, was thermal fluid processes, which is something that I, subsequently failed and got kicked out of engineering because, when I see like water doing this, like I get nightmares.
You get...
but that's...
Were you ever called lazy or anything? Did anybody say that you're lazy? I'll tell you why I'm asking. because I don't think there's such thing as a lazy person, honestly, because I've been called lazy many times in my life by people close to me and people not so close to me.
Why?
I just think there's no motivation.
Yeah, or aptitude.
Well, yes. I mean, it might be that I have no motivation to do X, but if I'm really into Y and Z, I'll commit a lot of time and effort.
I'll tend to agree with you there. And if you don't mind me digressing here, I know it's very structured here in this conversation. Yeah. But part of about what, like, the stuff I wanted to speak about, I mean, it's not because of my travels or whatever, but the principle of ikigai. Have you heard about it?
It's a Japanese thing, right?
Yeah, it's like this. It literally translates to reason for living, right? Iki, reason, and gai, life. But it's this 4 principle philosophy or type of philosophy, being what you are good at, what you can be paid for, what society needs, and what is the 4th principle now?
We'll have to Google.
It's not important if I'm forgetting it.
Yeah.
But to speak to your point, that's important, because if you are doing something that you're not interested in, or if you're doing something that's not actually earning you money, or if you're doing something that is kind of against the societal need or normal expectation, then you're not kind of fulfilling what your intrinsic desire is.
Okay.
And
everybody has their own ikigai, right? Or ikigai.
Everybody has their own ikigai. I mean, you might find something like botany exciting,
gardening and all that stuff.
Yeah, but can you be paid for it? Are you actually good at it?
Yeah.
Does the world actually need it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So that's there was no ikigai for engineering, I guess.
Not at all.
Makes sense.
It was the opposite of
it makes
ikigai.
sense. You got into it.
It was a yucky girl.
It's not like you'd grown up. I desperately want to be an engineer, as you say.
Yeah.
And then
of course. I mean, I wasn't. My cousin Kes, Kes, my dad's sister's son. He used to, whenever I had cars and stuff, he used to blow it up with fireworks in the.
And what did he become now?
He did architecture, and I know he was.
I thought you were going to say he became an arsonist or something. Yeah.
An arson. Oh yeah. No. He builds stuff now instead of breaking it down.
All right. Creator.
Yeah. They just had a kid, actually.
So then, now you've mentioned now you failed and all that stuff. Got kicked out. You said kicked out.
Right? Kicked out, yeah. They wouldn't let me back in. Excluded, yeah, that's the technical term. Yeah. And then they sent me for a profile test.
Okay. Who's they?
The university itself, HR department.
Okay.
So, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah. I didn't know this either.
Yeah. So they made me see this lady. It was like psych evaluation. Okay. And then she was like, listen, you're not cut out for engineering. And I was like, yes, I know, I'm failing. I failed. They kicked me out already.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, but do you know where your talents may lie? And I was like, no, not really. And we did this whole test. I sat there for 2 hours. It was awkward because she sat on the chair with like her legs up like this the whole time.
Very relaxed.
Very chilled, yeah. I think she was trying to make me feel at ease.
She should have asked you the question, when was the last time you cried in front of someone? But anyway, because that was the purpose of that question. But anyway, go on, yeah. Lady with her feet up, yeah.
And then the result was psychology.
Okay.
And at that stage, I was like, whatever.
Right.
It's all nonsense, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But then I took
Shout out
her
to our
lead.
psychologist listeners there, but anyway.
And our psychologists as well.
Yeah.
So at that stage, I didn't think that there was any relevance to what I was going through. I hated that process. It was demeaning. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And I was in a somewhat of a depression, being kicked out, not knowing what I'm going to do, no structure.
Yeah. Give me some context. How many years into the engineering attempt?
3.5.
3.5 years was the best. So first year was the best 3.5 years of your life, or did you make it into second year and third year?
I was just stumbling along, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it's 3.5 years into thinking I can make engineering work. This person comes and does an aptitude type of psych test.
Yeah.
And says psychology.
Exactly. 3.5 years later. And then, as I said, I was like, nah, nonsense.
Yeah.
I know we only have a short space of time, so we can't go as deep as we probably want to. But if I had to think about that right now, and if I think about what's made me myself, that's a big part of it, psychology.
Okay.
Because the thing that I've kind of somewhat figured out about myself is I can be in any sphere of life, but what I actually do like is people.
Okay.
I like to understand people. I like to figure out what makes them angry, what makes them sad, what makes them happy, and the psychology behind it. Not so much so in the academic the sphere of what it might be, but more so like my relativity towards it. Like, how do I make you feel? And
people. You're a people's person.
Yeah. And
makes total sense to me. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, and I think it kind of resonates with our family because, and even with friends and stuff, and that I'm this is gonna sound very egocentric, but I'm diverse enough to go into any unusual circumstance, and then just
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, and just be there, and then be able to adapt and engage with anybody.
This interaction with this lady that had her legs up on the chair. Was that like a pivotal moment? What came from that?
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
So At that stage, I thought that this is nonsense.
Okay, so what happened then?
So, what happened
I
then?
genuinely can't remember this story. So people might be thinking I'm leading you on.
No, you were not there. You started studying dentistry, I think, at that stage. Or you were doing matric or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But I actually, it was like the middle of the year. And I thought, you can't apply for anything else now till the beginning of the year. So I went into this psych. I started studying through UNISA.
Okay.
Your university.
Yeah.
So they sent me all of this.
University.
Yeah. So they sent me all of this literature and stuff. Didn't even read a word of it. And then Gesha, your sister, she was talking to me and stuff because she was studying in Mauritius at that time.
Yeah, she was doing medicine there.
Yeah. And she started that first year. Yeah. And she was like, no, you should come over and blah, 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 whatever. And I think our parents got together. I mean, everyone was worried about me at that stage. And there was a unanimous agreement that maybe they should send me over in December, January time.
So the fam decided to ship you over?
Yeah, I was exiled. Like Madiba, as you said.
So hold on. Because I got distracted there by my video equipment.
Banana.
You spoke to my sister who was studying medicine in Mauritius. She said, think about what?
Coming over to Mauritius.
To do what?
To do medicine or dentistry.
Okay.
Because there was only two things offered at that it's a medical university.
Right. So. And you thought about it, and you had this recollection of being a people's person. Did you think that deeply?
No.
You just wanted
all of that. Everything subsequent to me telling you about that lady or the legs up on the chair was a realization that I've come to in the past couple of months, if not.
Oh, recently. Okay.
Yeah.
So then, so then there was an inkling towards them shipping you out of the country.
Exactly. Yeah.
Putting you on an island. And saying, go and try to do medicine or dentistry. Is that basically it? And then how did you get into dentistry? Is it one of those things where I applied for both and I got into dentistry? Or?
No, I think I specifically applied for dentistry, not medicine.
Okay. Wow. Did you even know what dentists do? Did you know what did you think a dentist did at that stage in your life?
To be honest, I didn't have much of an interaction with dentists, but I did know that it was a very secular type of medical, the medical fraternity. In that people
Elaborate?
Always.
What do you mean?
People always single out dentists, or they always
So there's
a running joke about, is a dentist actually a doctor?
Yeah. Okay.
Which you don't want to hear my opinion about, but it's always.
I actually do, but go on.
Oh, later on, but. I mean, at that stage, that's all I knew. There were no memes and stuff about it as much as it is about them. But I'm like, I wonder how I know this, that, the dentists, they always single out as not being real doctors.
So you picked dentistry as opposed to medicine?
Yeah.
Okay. And how is that? Mauritius, because people hear Mauritius and they think, oh my gosh, this is a jaw now. And now this part I know. I know it's not a jaw.
Yeah. Because you know what the Gesha and I went through. Being there.
Yeah, just give us a flavor of what Mauritius was like.
Dal puri.
Yeah, okay. I don't even know.
Mauritius as an island, topographically, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Where we studied, it was an Indian-run university.
As in India.
As an India run. And I know a lot of my colleagues from India will listen to this podcast as well. And they are from India, and they will attest to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But we had this.
Before you go on, when you say Indian run, I'm thinking
India.
This is now properly, because lots of doctors qualify in India and then go around the world, and they're a lot of them are known as some of the best types of doctors out there.
Yeah.
That's my impression when
Yeah.
you say Indian run. But go on.
But I had a problem with authority then at that stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it had nothing to do with me then.
At that stage only.
Yeah.
Now you don't.
Yeah, now I'm pretty chill.
Okay.
Now I'm the authority.
Oh, you see. Okay, go on. So yeah, tell us about Mauritius.
Yeah. So when it came to that academic structure, it was hectic, very totalitarian. It was like you needed to be wearing a uniform.
Uniform at university.
At university.
I forgot about this.
We had a curfew at night. There was a men's what do you call it? Hostel. There was a female hostel. You get locked up after a certain time.
I actually forgot about. I genuinely forgot.
Yeah, it was pretty hectic, and we had a principal there, and I won't mention her name.
Wait, hold on. Now I realize why they shipped you over.
Yeah,
because I'm sure the parents must have known about this situation from my sister, and they must have thought this is the perfect place to send this fellow.
Exactly. But I mean, they didn't think it was that bad. They also didn't think that I would challenge the system there, which I did.
Elaborate. I don't know about this. Go on.
I got kicked off campus. I got exiled from campus.
Is it something you're comfortable telling us about?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, so I was considered like naughty. I mean, my hair was unkept. I wasn't the ideal student.
So nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed.
For the
with that
viewers
regard.
will understand that joke.
But
if you're watching this on the YouTube channel.
Yeah. So we used to host LAN parties.
LAN party? Okay, yeah. You
play Counter-Strike.
Okay. I mean, for people that don't know, a LAN party is where you connect all your computers up in a room and you play these like war games among each other in a room. That's a LAN, local area network party.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I used to host these LAN parties, and it was something innocent. It was just the guys getting together and like just sitting all in one room, but look, we used to make a lot of noise.
In the male only hostel.
In the male only hostel.
Hostel,
yeah. But they kind of identified that I was a naughty one, so it was a little bit prejudiced there in the hostel because they had South Africans on one side, they had the South Indians on one side, they had the Punjabis on one side, they had the Gujaratis, the Tamilians, whatever it was, right?
So it sounds very diverse, but at the same time very homogenous.
No, what do you mean diverse? It doesn't sound diverse at all.
No, I'm saying you're talking about all these different sects.
Oh, a lot of people from different parts of the
But it's very homogenous and that's very Indian.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's how...
So is that were there any other, in inverted commas, non-Indians at this place?
There were the Mauritians. But they're also like of Indian descent. So
so you seen as a South African?
Yeah, we had our own, regardless of whatever you are. You could be Muslim, colored, white, whatever. You're seen as a South African because believe it or not, like our culture here kind of speaks for itself. It's like we have our own.
I think South African culture is brilliant. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah,
but there was a big problem with that because it was too liberal in their opinion.
I get you.
So they kind of identified me as being a naughty one. Yeah, so I was exiled from within the hostel itself, from the South African little contingent that we had there to the top floor on the right where the Gujaratis lived.
Okay.
And that's where I met my best friend at university, Jinesh.
Okay.
He's currently in Australia. He's not even doing dentistry anymore. Shout out, Gino.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's doing actually. But anyway, so him and I became like really good friends. Now, why the Gujaratis at that stage is because they never used to drink.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, they never used to drink.
Officially, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, like after I moved up there, corrupted the whole floor, Janesh, Rupan, only the one guy, we used to call him Dot Raj because he used to wear a dot.
Yeah.
We all used to like almost... This is going to sound very Robin Hoodie of me, but we used to unify everyone by playing Counter-Strike because everyone loved it.
I thought you were going to tell me you were stealing from rich kids and giving to...
No, there were no rich kids there.
Yeah. Okay. So you unified everybody. You were like a
by playing Counter-Strike, yeah.
All right.
And I used to play it in my room because Dhiren, my roommate, and I, we used to, like, we did some stuff with our room. We made it very homely.
Okay.
So the one day, Janesh also used to start, he developed this reputation. Now he's hanging out with Yak, the South Africans, he's drinking and blah, blah, blah. And they tried to single him out. They didn't like him because he was also very, very vocal about his disapproval for how things ran there.
Right.
One night we were playing Counter-Strike. The hostel warden, who happened to be our orthodontist as well,
rocks
up to the hostel, opens the door. He's like, yes, Yak, what is this? You playing PlayStation?
Mhm.
And then Jinesh goes, for your information, sir, it's a computer, it's not PlayStation. Then he's like, Jinesh, did anyone ask you? And he went red in his face and he was like super angry. Walked into the room, opened my fridge. Now, I just got back from South Africa like 2 days before. So
Okay.
whenever we got back duty free,
Contraband.
yeah,
Mm.
you buy like your stuff and whatever it is. I used to buy for Uncle Mahan and my local guardians there.
Mhm.
So all this stock was now in
This
my
is just
fridge.
alcohol. I use the word contraband, but it's just,
Yeah,
it's nothing,
we just call it stock.
nothing hectic. Yeah.
So he was like, what is this?
Yeah.
You guys are drinking, blah, blah, blah. So
Yeah.
then confiscates everything, goes down. Next day, they call everyone. And this is going to sound even more Robin Hoodie,
Yeah.
but you can verify this with like the end. It's not an embellished story.
Yeah.
They called everyone except for me that was in the room.
Yeah.
And they asked him, whose idea was it? Who organized this party? Why was it making a noise? And everyone actually didn't give me up and say my
That's
name.
noble. Yeah.
And then the orthodontist, he came to me and he apologized and he's like, we're really sorry. We didn't know that this is going to go this far and whatever. We were trying to get Janesh because he's a big problem maker. We know this and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nothing's happened thus far. Like, why are they saying all of this? Then I got called and then she is like, if you don't...
She?
Shukla, Madam Shukla, which is the principal of the whole college.
Okay.
Everyone was poop scared of this
Okay.
auntie.
Okay.
And for, well, good reason. I mean,
Yeah.
she see you with your shirt walking off the, like, or your pants, she'll kick you off college for the day.
All right.
So
She calls you and says?
she calls me and she says, if you don't admit that it was you that organized this thing, all of you are going to be suspended for 1 month.
Okay.
So
Took one for the team. The land team.
I took one for the team and yeah, then everyone was like really...
So you got kicked out of campus.
Yeah, they kicked me off
All right.
completely.
And then, but you carried on studying.
Carried on studying, but I failed.
Okay.
I
I
failed.
don't even remember this. Yeah. To be
You
honest.
know that I was the only one in my own class, right?
I was going to get to that. I'm
Mhm.
glad you, because I think Yak is probably the only person in the history of dentistry ever that was the only person in his class.
It was like tuition, like dentistry
Like for the whole
tuition.
year, right?
For
something.
my whole academic, well, apart from the first year and the second year,
Yeah.
from there onwards, I was the only person.
Okay, it makes sense because you failed, then
It's because I failed. They didn't take in a new batch. They used to call them batches of students because the university, they reached capacity.
yeah.
So everyone thought at that stage, they're going to fail him and just make sure that he quits and whatever. But
Yeah, because
then-
it seems like a lot of resources just
exactly, for
just
one person. So I was my own academic year.
So you
But if
had
I-
one-on-one dental school.
It was hectic, I promise you. But, you know, therein lies, or lay,
The answer.
to why it is or could be as to what made me
Enjoy dentistry.
successful. I wouldn't say enjoy dentistry, but
Okay.
but made me successful in what I had to do, because I didn't apply myself so academically that I'm not a bookworm. I can't go and like
Yeah.
sit and study and make notes and whatever. But at that stage, sitting one-on-one with a lecturer, you can't even look anywhere else. You can't even take your
That's
phone out.
Crazy.
And they're just sitting there and they're talking to you like they're having a conversation. You have to listen. And that happened for 3 years ago.
That's amazing, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, it's good on them for not finding an excuse to get rid of you
Yeah.
and training you properly. So
And
they-
I must say, I mean, I think it was my principal from
Yeah.
BDS, the dentistry part of it,
Yeah.
Madam Mizra, she advocated for me quite a bit to actually just try and keep me there. And I think I owe a lot to her because her husband was the head of the surgical department.
Yeah.
I think he had a soft spot for me because I was actually good at surgery.
Okay.
And he took it upon himself to kind of initiate this one-on-one
Yeah.
lectures with me.
Okay, that's brilliant, man.
And he'd always
That's
ask me,
amazing.
like, how are you doing? He'd start the lecture off with asking me, how are you doing? And I'd answer him. I'd tell him,
That's amazing. man.
I'm not doing well. I
Amazing.
got a headache. Or I'm like, I just want to go play Counter-Strike.
It's- The way you say the thing about him asking you, how are you doing? You emphasize that as if it really struck a chord with you, because
It made a difference.
it does make a difference. Because it's weird. I got an email from a really senior person that I work with yesterday. And usually emails say dear, whatever, or hi, whatever.
Mm.
This person said to me, they started the email with Yash, how are you? And I was like, whoa, this.
Mm.
But anyway, that's
Do you
not
think it
that.
was a genuine
That
question?
It felt super genuine. Like, because he could have just said, hey, Yash, or Yash. and he's based in the UK, so they're very a bit more reserved and curt in their messages.
So what did you reply?
No, then I took like I
am well, thanks.
I took forever to try and figure out a response where I would sound not like I'm gushing over the guy because I'm a big fan of him, but also I don't want to sound too, I thought long
recluse
about responding to a very simple email.
Yeah.
But we digress, right? So your graduation ceremony must have been lit then. I mean, did you go? Was there?
It was one candle. It was candlelit.
Must have been quick. Or was there?
There wasn't. I didn't have a.
You just get the degree and you come back to Mzansi.
Yeah.
Now, how does that work? Now, coming from Mauritius to South Africa, you have to. The degree was not. You had to write an exam, right, or something?
Yeah. I had to get the degree evaluated, and at that time there was a council that just came about. It was called SAQA.
Okay.
South.
Yeah.
It was a family show. South African Qualifications Association.
Yeah.
And I had to go through these people who didn't even know what they were doing themselves. So firstly, you had to get the degree evaluated. Then the degree came back that was evaluated higher than the South African qualification. I was like, yes.
Okay.
I can just now go and register. And then they were like, no, HPCSA made you write the board exam.
Okay.
And that wasn't a pleasant
board
experience.
exam is now?
This is a board exam to practice in South Africa to get your qualification.
So even though your qualification is like ranked by this independent authority as being higher than a South African dental one, our regulator says you need to pass a board exam in order to satisfy our requirements, regardless.
Yes.
Okay. So you write that and pass, or what happens there?
Yeah, I wrote that. I mean, it was daunting. Yeah, first shot, I passed it, thankfully. Two of my colleagues, Ashay and Abdullah, that studied with me.
Yeah.
We made a very good decision to go down to Cape Town because it's subcontracted to university. So it was out of UWC.
Yeah.
So we went to the university. It was a handful of us. Out of 60 people, 8 passed.
Oh, sure. So well done.
Yeah. And
well, that just shows the training then.
Exactly. And then out of the 8...
But it's not fair. You had one-on-one.
There was 5 of us. Oh, yeah. No,
you had like you're the teacher's pet and everything.
Tuition. Yeah.
Okay. So you pass the exam. Then what's next?
Passed the exam, I needed to choose ComServe. Well, and then I don't know how your guys work. It was like a...
Well, let's pause there.
Yeah.
Because there might be people that are non-clinicians watching this. I know there are people that are interested.
Okay.
When you qualify as a doctor or a dentist or any healthcare practitioner in South Africa, if you're a medical doctor, you've got to do 2 years of internship first. And then you've got to do community service. Dentists just go straight from university to community service, which is 1 year in a public health facility. You get paid for it. It's called ComServe because you have no choice. And you get paid quite well. I mean, from earning nothing to earning quite a bit. So you did that. You had to apply for community service after the board exam.
Yeah. And then they gave me a few options, but apparently it's called third round.
I was third round. So you got to, when they say third round, it means you've got to pick a very few facilities because all the other students in the country have already picked it. And
so if I can ask you with that regard, how does that work? Is it like chronological, whoever rocks up first to choose, or? Apparently,
now I don't know how it works now, but apparently there was method to the madness where if you could show that you've got family in an area, or if you're married and you've got kids in a particular area,
so you motivate for it.
Yeah, you can motivate, and I know nowadays I've seen a lot of people online. They like shop around.
They trade their posts.
Yeah, I've got a post in Western Cape who wants it, and yeah. So you only had the pickings of third round, and you had probably like 3 or 4 to pick from.
Yeah, and there was not one name that I even recognized there. And even when I Googled some names, it didn't even exist. But then I asked you, and then you told me that there's the place Volksrust.
Because I was working in Standerton.
You were in Standerton and Mpumalanga. Then you told me there's a place Volksrust that's like, it's not too far from Standerton. I was like, yeah, okay, let me go out and try.
And how was Volksrust?
Amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was.
So that was like, I like dentistry, or?
No, that was, I liked surgery.
Okay.
Because when I was in Volksrust, I did my 1-year community service, and then they retained me.
Yeah, they kept you on permanently.
Yeah, they kept me on permanently because I used to do a lot of wisdom teeth. I mean, that was... I didn't know I liked it. I was good at it. I didn't know that I liked it. But then they offered me a post in... the tertiary hospital, Rob Ferreira Hospital in Nelspruit, which is about a 5-hour drive from Volksrust.
Yeah.
And it was
Bombela,
Yeah. It was a not a reg, what do you call it?
Like a supernumerary type of...
like an MO post, like a medical officer post, because they just started this department.
Yes.
So I went there and I trained under Barry Haldenes,
Yeah.
who's really good. And he was a medical doctor and then went to study maxillofacial surgery.
Okay. But you're based in Falklands, but you would go there
I used to go there for like 1 week
at a time.
every month.
Oh, I'm remembering this now. Yeah. My memory is terrible, so
a lot has happened.
I'm genuinely being informed by these answers.
I'm speaking about like myself, like kind of list of things in my head. But yeah, so I went there, and then Barry was phenomenal. We used to like take quite a lot of patients for Otterif's biopsies, wisdoms,
right.
Implants, not so much, but we did. It was my first exposure to implants, no pun intended for the implantologist out there.
Okay, I get you. Yeah.
And then there's So
this is now in the state. You're working in state.
I was working in state,
right?
And
so then, what made you leave?
So there were two things. The first thing was the second thing I can't speak about.
Okay.
The first
you don't want to speak about, you mean?
Okay. I don't think I should speak about it. The first thing that happened was that the HR department called me and they said that, look, this is you saving the department, because we used to send all our wisdom teeth surgeries. If we saw any wisdom teeth, we had nobody there to actually take to theater.
Okay.
There was no supervision.
Yeah.
So we used to send the patient to Steve Biko Hospital. I think everyone does that in that area, used to do that.
Yeah.
It cost the state something close on to 22 grand per patient, because
just
to transfer the patient, accommodation, obviously at the hospital, meals and whatever.
Get you. Yeah.
And then take them back. So I approached them and I said, I'd like to do these cases. I've been training on the thing. So they actually got Dr. Strauss.
Okay.
You remember Dr. Strauss?
I can't remember. I don't think
you ever met him, but this is Rolene Strauss's dad.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Rolene Strauss is the Miss South Africa, Miss World.
Miss Universe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so they're from Falklands.
She went intergalactic.
Yeah. So I always made a joke in Falklands. It's like they took all the beauty of the whole town and they concentrated on one person.
Yes. I hope you were talking about yourself.
I'm not talking. I'm talking about the rest of Falklands.
Okay.
Look, beautiful, beautiful town. Even people, good-looking people.
Right. So go on about this now.
So Rolene's dad, he was working in private. He had his private practice.
Dentist?
No, GP.
Okay.
But he had his DA, which is the diploma in anesthetics, so he was allowed to dope.
Oh, okay. So he was doing anesthesia.
Yeah. So him and I kind of structured something where he'd come and dope for me on a Friday, and we'd see like 4 or 5 wisdom teeth. So anyway,
where?
In theater at the hospital. In Falklands.
Oh, okay.
So we didn't have to transfer all of these patients out to Steve Biko.
Okay. So you're saving the state lots of money.
You save the state a lot.
Saving taxpayers' money. What's that guy that complained about? Anyway, move on. So you made an arrangement with Dr. Strauss, yeah?
Yeah. And we started seeing all of these patients. And then, what made me leave is an unfortunate circumstance, because you know what a supernumerary post is.
A supernumerary post, as far as I understand, is a post to specialize in something, but you don't get paid.
Yeah, you don't get paid, and it's paid for by a third party, like the state, for example. So the state will pay the university for you to come there and study.
Oh, okay.
And then they
but
will
you're not
pay
earning
your salary.
Anything.
Oh, no, you do earn, but they will pay your salary, kind of through the state.
Okay.
So, there was this post that was going on for a long time, and we applied for it and whatnot. And it was very unfortunate that I didn't get it. And a person that wasn't in the program even, that kind of didn't show any initiative, because inevitably when she got the post, she negotiated for a boyfriend to be relocated there as well. And it was just disappointing to me that I tried that hard, and I was finding my groove into something that I actually did like, because then I started realizing that I like one aspect of dentistry, being the surgery, and then I didn't get it. So there was a person, family friend of ours, that owns practices here in Joburg, but from the time I came back, in fact, he actually helped me train and stuff. With the practical training.
So you felt hard done by, and you said, you know what, I'm going to go and do this on my own somewhere. To summarize,
Yeah, well, not I'm going to do it on my own, but there was always this offer in the private sector for me to come and join this other practice.
Okay.
And at that stage, I thought, yeah, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm not getting anywhere with state, so might as well.
So you joined the practice, and then we are sitting at your practice now in Bedford View. It's called Bedford View Dental Care, Willow Street, massive place. I mean, maybe after we record this show, you can take me on a tour and I can do like a bonus video for the YouTube subscribers. But how did you end up here?
At this practice?
Yeah, how did you end up owning your own practice and doing things? Because you worked for someone, right?
Yeah. So the practices that I used to work at was in between Springs and Santon.
Okay.
And
as an employee type of thing.
Yeah.
An associate, sorry. Yeah.
And at that stage, I mean, I Googled where's the closest place to stay in Joburg.
Between both, yeah.
Between the two, and then came up as Bedford View, and then I came and saw an apartment, and I liked the apartment, so I had to buy it to poor financial decisions. Because you don't go and commit to something without knowing, like fully well, if you have a stable job, you got to have some foresight into where your finances are coming from. But it was far for me. Eventually, it started getting a bit far for me to travel because it was hectic. I used to travel from Bedford View to Springs, and then Saturdays also from Springs to Santon in the evenings, and it was just getting too much for travel. So I decided, let me open up something small. And it wasn't this place. I mean, my previous practice was kind of basically half the size of this room.
Yeah.
And it was through the lady that sold me the apartment. She worked for an agent, a real estate agent that sold this building to these people. It's called Therapy Works.
Yeah.
It was a special care needs center. And I went there, and it was only ladies. There were about 5-6 departments and about 28 ladies. So I was the first male to step into this practice as well.
Okay.
And at the beginning, I wasn't like...
Your impression. You're saying, I mean, let's make it clear. This is in your mind, you weren't met with, because we don't want to...
What?
I mean, you weren't met with what?
I wasn't warmly welcomed.
Okay, in your opinion, yeah.
No. In their opinion as well, because we subsequently became friends, and then they were very open with me about it. Okay. Because they were, one, I was a male, two, dentist. Okay. So their assumption of the dentist is going to be very noisy, people crying, the compression, the sound of the compressor and whatever it is.
Okay.
The irony, guess it's irony now.
Yeah.
I think so.
I don't know, let's hear.
I was the quietest tenant in the whole building.
Yeah, I think that's irony.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, that practice grew and grew and grew, and we kind of outgrew ourselves, and we needed more space. Yeah. We needed more space, and one of our patients is quite a reputable estate agent in this area, and she introduced me to this place.
This is a beautiful place. I mean, it's huge.
And I came here, and when I walked in here, I didn't see it. It was like very office vibes, very. But the one thing that I do like, and this is the second part of my philosophy, is interior design, or like designing things.
Yeah.
So I kind of...
I mean, there's a room in this practice, for people that are not watching the show. There's a room right at the back where Yak and I are sitting now. And there's like a wall with these leaves, and there's a banana light, and it looks like it's been set up for a professional podcast. So just to give you a flavor of what this place is like, there's a fountain outside that looks beautiful. There's these...
I think you can just put a walkthrough.
There's these fancy glass... No, but the listeners are not going to... There's these fancy glass things that can change...
Too much listening.
From transparent to opaque. It's a really, really cool place. So now, you got here. My question, and earlier on you said... You were a bit reluctant to sound like but are you successful? I mean, do you think you're successful? And I know you're not practicing anymore, dentistry. I don't even know if we'll get to that story with the time we've got. But are you successful? What does success mean to you?
No, wait. What is your definition of success? What do you feel?
No, you see, I asked the question, and that is my question. What does success mean to you?
Honestly, it's to do what I love to do whenever I want to do it with the people that I love to do it with.
Okay. Okay, for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, and you might notice that the camera looks slightly different. Sorry to the listeners, but I've got to explain this.
And our hair
Just to give you a sense of how
break.
this is a one-man operation. My camera overheated just after Yak gave us that
They didn't overheat the battery.
super brilliant definition of success. So if everything looks off, and I'm trying to edit this as less as possible, so I just want to explain to you why it looks different. But that's what happened. My camera overheated.
We'll come back.
We're back. So Yak, now that you've given me that definition of success, which I think is a great definition, you got to answer my question. Are you successful?
Can I give you my further definition of success first? Or
Okay. Or you could just answer the question.
Is it a yes or no question?
I mean, what do you think?
If I think it's a yes or no question.
No, I mean, maybe there's things that you're aspiring towards, and yeah.
Yeah, I guess success is a ongoing definition. It's whatever it is that you make of it at a particular moment in time. And I'll tell you why I want to further define it is because it's all good and well, like saying, you want to do things you love and when you want to do it and having the time and ikigai principles. But I think you would have seen in my Instagram posts, especially when I post things not related to any form of profession or academia.
You never do, basically.
Yeah. But I always use this phrase, and it's my phrase. Like I've coined it. But goes something like this. You got to have a 9 to 5 in order to earn an income, and you got to have an income in order to fund your hobbies.
Okay.
And you're not going to like all of those hobbies. You might hate some of them, but you got to have a varied amount of hobbies in order to know where your passion lies.
Okay.
And eventually your passion will replace your 9 to 5.
Okay.
So I think by definition of that, and what my understanding of success is, I think I am on the road to success.
Okay.
Not there yet. I don't think there will be a yet. I don't think there will be a then. But it's an ongoing adaptation and
so more of a journey than a destination.
Yeah.
You don't get to a place called success.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're on that journey.
Yeah, I'm definitely. And why I say that is there's a lot of other stuff that I do. There's a lot of stuff that I've kind of found my passion in. DJing, for example, and my drone photography, all of that sort of stuff. And I mean, previously I wouldn't have been able to afford that sort of lifestyle.
So
had it not been...
It's paying for your hobbies.
Yeah.
The 9 to 5 is paying for your hobbies.
Yeah.
We'll talk about a couple of things you mentioned a bit later because they're on my list that I want to ask you. But do dentists make good money? Before you answer, the reason I'm asking this question, it's a bit of a, I don't know, intrusive question. But remember, one of the reasons for this podcast is that people that might be considering a career in dentistry or healthcare in general may be watching this, and you might shape somebody's decision. So I want you to be quite open and don't think of it as directed only at you. Because in my mind, I think you're making good money, but do dentists make good money?
I would think so. I would think successful dentist makes good money.
Okay.
And what makes a successful dentist? It's probably going to be your next question.
No. So what you're telling me is it's not necessarily just if you become a dentist baseline, you're going to be making good money.
No, not at all.
I'm glad you're saying this. Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't that pertinent to any form of profession?
No, you see, this is the thing that I feel a lot of us aren't told before we get into it. Because I think the perception out there is that, well, let me explain to you why. What's shaped my opinion of people's perceptions. Like, I got into dentistry.
Why did you get into dentistry?
I mean, I applied for medicine. There's a long story and a short story. The long story is I applied for medicine and dentistry and I got into dentistry.
Were you sad about it?
Sorry?
Were you sad about not getting into medicine?
No. It's because I was neither here nor there on either.
Well, let's take one step back. What do you apply for medicine and dentistry and just those two?
This is what I'm getting at. Because there's a perception out there that it's a stable job, good income, you can run your own business, you can take it overseas. That's the perception. And
take it overseas.
Yeah, if you need to, you're not limited to doing it only in this country, right? So there's this perception that you'll be okay. If you get into that, you'll be fine. But I think I learned, and I'm hoping you'll elaborate on it, is that it doesn't mean that because you become a dentist, you're going to be okay. Because, from my understanding, once you finish off in ComServe, a lot of people don't have a choice but to go into private practice. It's like there's not many opportunities in government to have a stable job. But go back, so do dentists make good money?
I would think successful dentists make good money. I wouldn't say that it's a blanket theory that because you get into any profession, I don't know, let's think about any random drug dealer, for example.
Yeah, well, that's not a profession, but I mean, I get what you're saying. But
I'm talking about a pharmacist.
If I, okay, well, there's a part of you that you didn't mention yet, because you mentioned DJing, but you didn't mention stand-up comedy. But we're going to get to that.
Yeah,
I want to ask you. I know it's the 9 to 5 that makes you money to pay for your hobbies.
We used to, yeah.
But are there? But are there things that you loved about dentistry, and what did you love about dentistry?
What I loved about dentistry was definitely the surgical aspect.
Okay.
I don't know why I like. Well,
elaborate for people that don't know about surgical.
Okay, so yeah, there's wisdom teeth removal more specifically. I really enjoyed doing that.
Like impacted wisdoms. That
impacted really complex removals of teeth. And I don't know. It might have been that I was really good at it. It was one aspect that I saw that was a defining sort of expertise as to whether or not you're good at something or not. Because even like a filling, for example, right? It all depends on so many variables: what material you use, what instrument you use, what's the setting time, there's so many variables.
And also what the patient's experience is ultimately. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
Because you could do the best filling and the best extraction technically by the textbook, everything. If the patient didn't enjoy it or came out there saying, I hated it.
Precisely. And that actually brings me to the second aspect of what makes a successful dentist. Yeah. And I mean, I tell all of my colleagues and my dentist friends, which they don't like me for.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use the
people
actual
don't like
phrase.
You. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just that particular aspect. But I think anyone can learn to do something repetitively. Or if you do it enough, you're going to get good at it, to have a baseline sort of ability to do it.
Yeah.
But there's an aspect of dentistry that I've actually discovered, and I don't even think it's particular to dentistry, but it's those human skills. It's the ability to connect with someone. It's the ability to have that empathy, to know what someone's going through, to understand that what they're even reporting back to you is nothing, like clinically, nothing to do with what they're even talking about.
Yes.
They might be going through some hectic amount of trauma at home, psychological trauma, and all the other aspects of the clinical evaluation that you're doing at the time, that's almost irrelevant.
Yeah.
And it's
irrelevant to you as a clinician, maybe.
Yeah. And it's to siphon and filter all of that stuff out in order to understand what is actually being spoken about. Yeah. And
is this why you realize that psychology is quite a big thing in your life?
Yeah. And I found that out only after me being given the opportunity to interact with people. And dentistry sort of facilitated that, because I'm not going to go stand on the corner of the road and go speak to people. They're going to run away.
You stumbled into something that actually,
closer to me.
Puts you in touch with people.
Yeah.
Intimately in touch with them because you're in their face.
Exactly. Especially when I started practice there at Therapy Works, it was phenomenal because I had even these older patients that were at the old age homes and stuff, and their children have moved overseas. They came to the practice, they had some treatment, whatever. Some of them used to actually make appointments with but they felt bad to just make a consult appointment. So they'd come in and they'd make false symptoms, and we'd end up talking for 30, 45 minutes, and then they'd be like,
so they wanted to have a chat, basically.
They wanted that interaction with me,
You mentioned that it started at Therapy Works, right? I'm wondering, the natural question in my mind is, why did it start there when you got into private practice and not when you were in the state? And this is my assumption, but you can correct me. When we're in state, we didn't really have conversations with our patients because there was a
Not at
language
all.
barrier, right? Am I right?
Yeah, 100%.
So we couldn't connect with them on that level. You'd learn some dental Zulu and say, sawubona uzokhipha
Yeah.
It basically means, do you want to pull out a tooth?
Yeah,
But you couldn't connect.
exactly.
And this is why.
And you were not afforded the opportunity and the time to actually connect with the patient because you're seeing volume.
Well, look, you might have had the time because you could have taken forever on a patient in the state and you would have earned the same amount of money, right? So, and I used to work with people that would take a bit of extra time and that could speak to a patient.
No, I don't mean time as in a monetary value thing, but just the volume of patients that needed to be seen on that particular day.
Yeah, but if they didn't get seen, they would go home and come back again next week, right? But the point I'm trying to make is you couldn't connect with them as much as you'd want to because of a language barrier.
Yeah.
And this is what, I'm going to give some insight into my thinking here, but it's why I believe that all clinicians in South Africa need to be proficient in some indigenous or local language apart from it's a pity that we never learned it growing up. I'm doing Duolingo now, learning Zulu, but there's a thing about Duolingo is like you'll be a master in Duolingo, but you can't have a conversation really.
Yeah, so it's not conversational Zulu that you learn.
Yeah. So going back to the thing is, you started connecting with your patients when you started private practice because you could develop relationships with them and rapport with them.
Yeah. And from that, the amount of referrals that I got for the practice to actually grow and build almost had nothing to do with my clinical skills. The people that used to refer, I do a cleaning or I just have a consult with them, but they'd go and rave about me on social media and give me a Google reviews and all of that. And I just think to myself, but
And you made me think of something, right? When family members or people that are not clinicians go to a dentist and they give me feedback. So I'll give a perfect example. Like my dad said to me, I can't remember who it was. It was a family member.
He went to a family member?
No, they went to a dentist. And they said, no, that dentist is brilliant. So I said, how do you know that the dentist is brilliant? Like, what about them do you know? And what about the work that they did, do you know, to evaluate that they're a good dentist versus a bad dentist?
The dentistry as opposed to a clinician.
And I love asking patients those questions because then they're stumped. They can't really answer. They can't put their finger on it. But it's all about the bedside manner and the experience and how that clinician made them feel as a person.
Yeah.
As opposed to, whether you cut your class 2 perfectly and you did bevels and all that sort of stuff.
No, of course.
For 20.
Yeah. Patients don't know what the bevel is. They don't know what the margin and the seal and everything. But then also at the same time, there's got to be a balance between the two because you can't have someone with an excellent bedside manner making jokes. Oh, they just love you when they walk in. But then the filling is falling out every couple of months because there's only so much that a person will
one would expect a baseline level of clinical competence.
Yeah.
Which is how you pass at a university.
But that's exactly what I'm getting at. One can be taught.
Yeah.
The other one cannot be taught, but there needs to be an unlearning and like relearning.
Why don't you think it can be taught? Because I think it can be. I think it should be. It's just not taught.
Bedside manner and...
Not even bedside manner. In order to have good bedside manner, you have to first have the insight that it's necessary. And I feel like there's lots of people that get into medicine dentistry, straight A students. Their whole life, they've known that if I do really well academically, I'm going to do really well in university.
That's the inference,
And it never gets taught to us. Maybe now it does. I'm pretty sure it does. But the importance of connecting with the patient was not stressed in my time. We were more interested in getting quota, making sure we had enough extractions, dentures, etc., etc. No, not focusing on the patient experience.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not about unlearning. It's actually, it needs to be emphasized more. And I think you can teach it. Because surely you mentor people that join your practice and you explain these things and you show them.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, it's not like I mentor. I had and have people around me that just watch what I do and how I interact with patients. But when it comes to And I say unlearning and relearning. I'm not even talking about a patient. I'm talking about an emotional quotient more than anything else. How I talk to you, for example, how we talk to our parents, how we talk to our family and friends. You know, there's almost like an understanding that as long as you can actually get your message across to somebody else, that is the conversation that needs to be had. But how well is the other person perceiving what you're saying? So the end goal is not just for that person to understand what you are saying to them, but for them to understand and vice versa, whichever way it is. And it's that sort of congruence of what your needs are as opposed to what I am able to offer you that needs to overflow.
I get you. And it takes getting to know what the patient really wants, actually.
Yeah. And we keep saying patient, but I'm not even talking about patient. I'm just talking about life in general.
Okay.
Like how to have that amount of communication skills in order to follow through or to translate what my interests are for you or not.
It's fascinating, yeah. So what did you hate about dentistry?
To be honest, admin, but I hate that about life in general.
Okay. So tell us what is admin? I was never in private, so give me like mundane things that I don't even think about.
When you take money from someone, whether it is they paying for it themselves or there's a third party, there has to be a recording of it, that transaction that's involved, and there's paperwork. So honestly, I don't even like taking money from patients. I feel awkward about it. Sometimes I even pretend like I don't know if the receptionist is not there. I pretend I don't know how to use a card machine, and I'll be like, oh, WhatsApp you later, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And so you're not comfortable having the money conversation, or?
I'm not comfortable with having the money conversation. I'm not comfortable with the admin subsequent to there being a transaction, a financial transaction, because it is laborious. There's a lot of things you got to know that they don't teach you in dental school, like coding. I mean, there's a lot of codes that you need to know in order. Thankfully, there's systems out there now where you don't necessarily need to know the codes and you can just plug in some information. But there's a lot to know about it. And more so over and above that, and this is a big aspect, and it's not just to do with dentistry, but in our academia, regardless of what it is, medicine, dentistry, anything else, we're not taught about financial matters and implications, tax most especially, and tax efficiency, and VAT. I don't even know till this day what VAT means. I can't understand it. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. But this is now where you have to employ somebody else in order to tell you what these things are. And that for me is like, it's a pitfall because I like to know what it is that I'm doing and I shy away from. I'm good at a lot of things, but the things that I'm not good at, I shy away from. And then it creates this.
Do you delegate? I mean, how do you get over that, or you force yourself to learn?
I used to, but there's also a very big aspect of all of that, which is like a time constraint and a time the manipulation of time. There's and it's sub-delegation, and it's knowing what is fine. It's your dereliction to know that you should know about it. How much you should know about it, that's what you have to decide.
Okay, I get you.
So there's where your accountants come in. That's where your billing system comes in. That's where your.
But clearly, you've gotten it right. I mean, all of this doesn't happen just by winning.
I mean, look, it's taken a lot. There's a lot. There has been a lot of challenges. We still sort of finding out aspects of especially after my injury and all of that, like how to actually apply these systems. So there's a lot we need to know.
Is dentistry getting easier? I'll tell you why I ask. So I deal with doctors and dentists on my day-to-day job, right?
What is your day-to-day job for people that don't know?
Well, I work at dental and medical protection, and I help doctors and dentists when they're in trouble, when they have complaints, when they need medical legal and dental legal advice, right? So I'm always seeing doctors and dentists when they're in need, and other clinicians when they're in need. And the reason why I'm asking if dentistry is getting easier is because I'm seeing lots of queries from dentists about things that I wasn't exposed to. And for example, digital smile design. is the thing that comes to mind. And when I look into this, I'm thinking, oh, this looks really user-friendly, as from a clinician's point of view. Like, you just get this thing, you scan it, the computer and the algorithms figure it out and all that stuff. So that's some context behind why I'm asking, is dentistry getting easier? Like the practice of clinical dentistry.
Yeah, the short and long answer is no.
Okay.
No, sorry, I meant yes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, look, what you're talking about now is not, that's a more of advanced dentistry. But if you apply those same principles to basic dentistry, because there's a difference between the two. If, let's just say, for example, there's a cavity and it needs to be filled, and you need to go figure out the margins, and you need to figure out an undercut, and you need to make sure the occlusion is right and all of those certain things. I mean, if you apply those same principles to DSD, but you've got a digital scanner, you prep that cavity, you scan the whole tooth, and you let a computer system design that for you and then print it, and all you're doing is you cementing it in, then yes, it's getting very easy, one.
Yeah.
And it's also making it user-friendly.
Yeah.
In the sense that a lot more people or more dentists, even from their own sphere of practice, being the public sector, whatever, can step into something, learn a system almost overnight, and then put it into practice.
Which opens up some risk, right? I mean, because
who's to blame if something goes wrong?
No, it sounds like anybody off the street can just, sometimes with these types of things.
Exactly. And this is like the unpopular phrase that I use for
What's the phrase?
No, I can't say that.
Okay.
But it goes along the lines of like a lot of people can do dentistry.
Okay.
It's something that is a teachable skill. It's a learnable skill. As with all skills, obviously, but with dentistry at the moment, with the digitization of it and AI and all of that, it's probably an industry that's benefiting quite a lot and leaps and bounds. From technology.
One of my colleagues, when I was at Norton Rose, that's a law firm, wrote an article before AI was a big buzzword. This was before COVID and everything, right? And he said, and he concluded the article, I'll never forget it, by saying that there's the two professions or careers that are the safest from AI, from being taken over by AI. Did I tell you the story before? But the two careers are being a preacher or pastor or being a dentist. Because
where did he get that information from? He asked AI.
there was no chat GPT at that time. But let's move on now from dentistry. Right?
Okay.
You were a DJ? Or you are a DJ? What's this now? What's your DJ name?
Drake.
As
in DRYAK. So it's pronounced, but it's Dr. Yak.
Dr. Yak, yeah. But it's Drake. Okay.
Yeah.
How did this happen now? Is this Elton? Wait, you mentioned Elton and Claudia earlier, and I didn't get a chance to take credit for it. Right? Elton is one of your, as far as my perception is probably like your closest friend, right?
Yeah.
Elton Lowe.
Elton Lowe, yeah. And shout out LTs.
He's a top entrepreneur, am I right? And he's behind many things, but one of these things are active aligners, which is, for the non-dentists out there, it's those clear plastic aligners that straighten people's teeth. I'm trying to dumb it down. And
no, it's pretty smart.
Okay, thank you. And I always say to Yak that I always take credit for Yak meeting up with Elton.
He wants commission for friendship.
Because I introduced them, because Elton was actually a client before he even met.
Yeah, you're allowed to disclose that information.
Yeah, he's comfortable with it. So I just want to take credit for introducing you to your bestie. And I'm sorry that things are changing. But anyway. So where were we? I can't even remember. I was asking about the DJ thing. So did it come from Elton?
Or Drake?
Yeah, because, I've seen you DJ at some of his events.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. Look, we built a nightclub in Elton's basement. That was like a hobby. Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Nice to have like an insert right now of like what the club looks like.
Yeah, maybe we can put some B-roll in there for the viewers.
Yeah. But
how did you get into it? Genuinely now.
I genuinely like music.
Right.
That's something that I discovered.
Okay.
Especially when I was on Everest and you're alone and you don't have nothing else.
Yeah.
And music sounds different.
Yeah.
And when you and Diana always like fluke me about my diverse taste in music when you jump into the car. But I always thought to myself, like DJing is like it's an art. Actually, not DJing. I wouldn't call it, because a DJ takes one song and he mixes it with another song and he makes a new song. Sound engineering is actually a little bit further, where you creating a song from scratch. You're putting beats together and all of that stuff. So technically speaking, that's what I wanted to do.
You wanted to be a sound engineer?
Yeah, sound engineer.
Okay.
And then one of our other friends, he owns Katie's Palace.
Okay.
For any Joburg people that would know it.
Yeah.
So the one day he was like, "Yeah, Yak, you want to come and try it out?" So I went there, and then
just like that.
Yeah, and then I DJ'd.
That's cool.
It was hot. I remember my ears burning, and I just got back from Everest the first time. So I was sunburnt, and it was hectic, but I really enjoyed it.
So you still do it now, like you?
Yeah,
you've got the equipment and stuff.
So there's for the viewers, I don't know if we are going to do B-roll. Yeah. This is kind of the rec room of the practice. So I've got the 3D printer behind there, and then my computer and this little sound booth that
I'm glad the 9 to 5 is paying for all these hobbies, because it's not cheap these days, surely.
No, I mean, once you have your initial investment in, you don't have to go more than that. It's.
And do you have like a Spotify or Apple Music thing? Not yet.
Still not yet. There's a lot of things I don't have that I should.
Stand-up comedy. One of the most bizarre experiences I've had in the last couple of years was when Yak sent me a message and said, "Do you want to go to this comedy show?" What was that? Right? You said that, and I said, and I just decided to say yes. I didn't even ask questions, because sometimes it's better, you have more fun when you don't know what's happening. And it was the most bizarre experience, because Yak took me to this venue. It's the first time I've ever been to a comedy show where there was no alcohol being served.
Yeah, samosas.
There were samosas being served.
There were samosas and tea.
The whole place, there was a bit of, it smelt of weed and everything. And it was just a bizarre experience. And I remember sitting next to Yak in the audience and just looking at him and laughing. And he said, what's going on? And I said, no, I just find this such a bizarre experience.
Yeah.
But now, the stand-up comedy scene, what did you actually perform? And how did you get to that?
So not there. I mean, I first met Eric Janssen, who's a comedian at Comedy Central, and the whole undertone of everything that I'm speaking about is all those personal interactions that I have with people, and I like people.
That's a common thread.
Yes,
is what
that's
you're saying,
the common
undertone.
thread.
Yeah.
So Eric Janssen was speaking at Macro one day.
Okay.
He was announcing stuff. It was somewhere in the south of Joburg.
Who's that? Who's Eric Janssen?
Eric Janssen is a comedian on Comedy Central.
Okay.
So he was there, and then I saw this guy. So no one was around him. So I walked up to him and was like, "Hey, how's it going?" Whatever. And then we started talking. Yeah. And then eventually he ended up coming to the practice. He was a patient. And then he introduced me to all of these other people.
Yeah.
One specifically being Doc.
Yeah.
Doc Comedy. That's his handle. That's what he goes as. And I really enjoyed his comedy because it was observational humor.
Okay.
Something like Seinfeld, like what Seinfeld used to do. And we used to have these conversations, and we'd both be making jokes, but we wouldn't be laughing.
Okay.
We'd just observe what each other, what we'd be saying, what we were saying. And then the one day, it wasn't even Doc, it was someone else. I can't remember who the comedian was, but I was in those circles now. And it was kind of an underground thing that they had. It was during COVID. It wasn't that underground. It was plot somewhere in deep south of Joburg. And we went there, and they asked me to come and do something.
Yeah.
And then I did. And people found me funny then at that
Well, thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. But yeah, I mean, that's not a hobby I actually enjoy, because it's, I wouldn't say I don't enjoy it, but it does take a lot out of you. A lot of the comedians I see, and being authentic self is also like a big aspect of, in my opinion, what's needed to be translated to your profession and through your private life. And with the comedians especially, it's like they do try very hard to be funny.
Yeah.
But most of them, when you're having a conversation with them, it's almost like they're so drained from being funny all the time that it's hard to maintain a conversation.
Sure.
By not just trying to be funny all the time.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have any mentors?
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, can you comfortable naming them or telling?
Yeah, one would be Elton Lau. He's a friend, and he's a mentor. And
how so?
I guess more so about all the aspects that I've been speaking about, living like your authentic self. And that's what Elton does. I mean, he enjoys to do what he actually loves to do.
Yeah.
He does not consider whether anybody judges him or what he's, otherwise would be construed as an alternate lifestyle or whatever. I'm not saying he's gay, but I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, alternative.
That's a joke.
Yeah.
But I mean, and he's also a very empathetic person. And I think especially when it comes to empathy, like a lot of people go through stuff. And when someone goes through things that are particularly about them, they kind of shut off the rest of the world. And it alienates themselves, but it also alienates people around them. And that's that second aspect is not what people actually understand, that you push people away when you're being subjected to stuff.
So Elton's what? He's been a mentor. He's opened up a different perspective to life. Or
and especially with like you're not compartmentalizing things, but understanding that life is fluid. Life is not black or white. Life is different shades of gray.
Okay. That's great. I hope he will watch this and it's glad
hopefully.
that. I mean, have you ever told him that he's your mentor?
No, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, all the time I reiterate that. And
do you have others?
Different shades.
Any others that you can think of? Personally, I feel like I've got lots of mentors, and they probably don't even know it. But I try and take bits and pieces of every different person.
Exactly.
And try and shape myself into it.
I mean, there's for the definition of what mentorship is. I mean, we could go on and on and on if I sit there. But if I to make mention of specifically like yourself and Yuri and our cousin, like the relationship that we guys have, and this is a private conversation, but it's public.
I hope nobody's listening. Yeah.
But we call ourselves the doers. DOERS. I'm spelling that right. Is there apostrophe anyway?
No, that's right.
Yeah, but we have this group, and we're always like inspiring ourselves. We share memes a lot. I mean, that's part and parcel of how we communicate. But we also inspire ourselves to do a lot more, and especially when people, or either one of us, are going through something particularly difficult, we're there for each other. And it's something that I do appreciate. And like especially from a mentorship perspective, I mean, Yuri is I think we both would agree that he's successful in his own light. But he's the most down-to-earth person, and he loves his dogs. He loves his wife. They go on holiday. They do things that are like very, adventurous.
Yeah.
Like we did Otter Trail together, and that was like an amazing. We had a fight the one day when we were crossing the river because I was droning.
Yeah, well, let's not air out dirty laundry.
We were washing the laundry in the river while I was trying to drone it. But even you as well.
People shape you. Oh, thanks a lot, man. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, but let me tell the audience why. How much time do you have? It sounds like you're rushing me.
We've got time. Yeah.
But I mean, I was speaking earlier about the Ikigai principles, and it's like doing what you love. I'm not trying to remember it now. Doing what you love, doing what you're good at, doing what you can be paid for, and doing what the world needs. And you started dentistry and you went into it and whatever, and you studied all of those years. You got into it, and then when it came to your first year and when you were in ComSert, you realized it wasn't for you. And then you decided to do something that you actually would enjoy. But I'm sure making that call at that stage must have been difficult. And a lot of people, including myself, I mean, change was forced upon me and I had to adapt. But a lot of people would unfortunately not want to make those changes in fear of failure or in fear of being judged. And that's the unfortunate part about, where we are as society, and especially in like our culture. But I think you did a good job by changing, and because I really don't see you, no offense, or all offense as possible, I don't see you as a good dentist. I don't think you'd make a good dentist.
All right.
You'd get very irritated.
I'm not going to comment whether I'm offended or I feel that it's a compliment. I'll leave that.
Yes, but okay, mentor.
Well, thanks a lot, man. Yeah, I appreciate it. Does anything make you nervous? Like, can you remember when last you were nervous about anything? Because you seem like a confident person, and as the theme of this interview so far. You like speaking to people, approaching people, putting yourself in unusual and different situations. You seem like somebody who is chilled and doesn't get nervous about anything. But can you think of something that makes you nervous or made you nervous? Or
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, there's especially at the one stage when I used to do surgery and particularly implants. I mean, it's a skill that you taught at university in theory, but you're not really practicing it. And then you kind of have to place your first implant, and then you got to place your second one, your third one. So all of that, it carried on making me nervous up until a point where one day I just stopped being nervous.
That's brilliant. I'm glad you mentioned this, right? Because when we I'm putting myself in a patient's shoes, right? If I go to a doctor, I'm assuming that whatever they're doing to me,
that everyone's
fully competent, they're not nervous about it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I hated about dentistry. I remember when I first started and a pediatric patient would come in, I would have to psych myself up and my hands would be shaking. I got my first needle stick from a peds patient because I was nervous, literally. And the public expect you to have this baseline competence and confidence in yourself, but there's always a first time for everything.
No,
right?
exactly.
And a second time.
And that's the thing. I mean, if we have to subject every young practitioner to this thing, or how old are you? When did you qualify? Where's your father? They make jokes like that, especially at one particular stage. Like I used to be called very young for my age, and especially when I wear my scrub cap and you can't see the grays.
Yeah.
And patients would walk in and they'd be like, "Oh, do you own the practice?" And there's subtle comments that kind of indicate that you're not experienced enough to be working on me.
Yeah, it's probably the thing that women experience all the time where we used to work with, UFT used to work with me, and then the patients would come in and say, "Oh, sister, where's the doctor?" That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where people just judge you based on your experience.
No, exactly. Of course. I just kept thinking about this meme now where there's the surgeon's looking down like this, and then there's a patient there, and then the surgeon says, "Relax, David, it's just a minor surgery." And then the patient goes, "But my name is John." And then the surgeon goes, "Yeah, my name's Dave."
Yeah.
That was a funny meme. I like that.
That's a good one, yeah. I mean, you can relate to that because we've been on that side. You've been on that side of, you have to actually psych yourself up. And lots of people don't think of that, right?
Yeah. But I mean, to answer your question about being nervous outside.
Not really. It's okay if you don't get nervous. I mean, you chill.
No, I mean, look, I get nervous when...
like big business meetings, I don't know, well, it's fine. If you can't think of it, that's okay.
Yeah, I actually can't.
I get nervous before I give a big presentation and things like that.
Yeah.
Even though I'm very comfortable with it nowadays. Like it used to give me sleepless nights. I've gotten to that stage that you mentioned where you've done it enough times where you're comfortable with it. But I still get nervous.
No, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a good motivating factor to understand that, one, you're still human, and two, you're not being like
apathetic towards it. You care about it.
Or approaching this from an egocentric perspective that you're so good at it that nothing's going to touch you.
Yeah, I get you. Ever had a patient or a case that deeply impacted you?
Yeah, DPL. What are you saying?
Deeply impacted you positively or negatively? Can you think of is there any moment? I mean, and please don't disclose any confidential stuff, but or you can even say not really
Yeah, in fact, there's been a few patients that I've actually had that impacted me quite a lot. In fact, can I, at this juncture, talk about the gender-based violence? I know it's not on the list.
No, please. There's no. My list doesn't dictate the conversation.
Okay,
it needs to flow.
So I climbed on behalf of the Impilo Foundation, and it was to raise awareness for gender-based violence. And why I resonated with that.
Wait, you brushed over that. You said you climbed. Now, not everybody knows.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. But
okay,
unless you want.
So you did an initiative.
You're the interviewer.
No, because you're saying climbed, but people need to know that it was Mount Everest, right? So you climbed Everest for an initiative. Go on then.
Yeah, so there were many to kind of choose from. We were even thinking about starting our own NPO and stuff, but the logistics of doing that and training to go up a mountain is difficult. Yeah. So we partnered or associated ourselves with Impilo Foundation and Angela Young because their topic at that particular time was gender-based violence. And why so was I told you, like, I worked in that Max Specs department in Mpumalanga.
Maxillofacial, yeah.
Yeah. And it's a deep rural, and the patients hardly speak any English, and your native language is also like a little bit flawed. But they'd come in and they'd say to you, "Oh, I opened the car door and I got hit in the face, or I fell down the steps, or I slipped, or whatever it is." And we know that it's nonsense, because clinically it doesn't correlate if you got a bruise here and you open the car door.
Okay. Yeah.
So I used to get irritated and frustrated then at that stage.
Yeah. With patients like basically telling you a white lie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they were lying to us, and I'm trying to help, but we're getting like false information. And that was it. And you just get irritated, and that was the resounding emotion that you had from it.
Yeah, irritation, yeah. Instead of like empathy or
exactly. And then 4 or 5 years later on, I'm working in private practice in an affluent area. And then COVID happened. And then a lot of the referrals that I used to get was also like trauma related.
Okay.
And it was affluent persons, ladies specifically, coming in with like their Porsches and their fancy cars. Yeah. And it was exactly the same thing.
Okay.
Oh, I opened the car door and I got hit there and whatever. And I was like, huh? How's this happening so many years later and in such different spheres of life? And the one day I remember I particularly got emotional about that, and like the whole thing was, it was a very young lady that came in, and like very, very pretty. You could see that she took care of herself very well. And she came in holding her teeth in her hands, like that's her 2 front teeth. And she's like, "What do I do? Can I put it back?" And I'm like, I'm so worried about like what my family's gonna say and whatever it is. She said all of that, and I was like, "Okay, what happened? Let's sit down, let's have a chat. We made some tea, whatever." And then she's like, "No, my son was playing with a baseball bat and he hit me by mistake."
Okay.
And then I was like, "Well, then why are you worried about what your family's gonna say? I mean, this is like a trauma, or whatever." And at that particular moment, I realized that all of these women, being in the affluent area or in the deep rural parts of South Africa, were all subjected to the same form of this gender-based violence, where the perpetrator is sitting right there in the room with them. So they underwent this physical trauma, but then there's also that emotional trauma where they subjected to them, like fabricating the story in order to not
to protect
to not get in trouble any further per se.
Okay.
So
that had a profound impact, because I mean then that was what inspired you to link up.
And that's why I chose to answer your question, because it wasn't in one particular time, but every single time this would happen. First, it would elicit this frustration in me, and then when I eventually understood deeper what this issue was, it became empathetic.
I get you. You want to talk about Everest or not really?
It's up to you.
I mean, okay, so tell us about Everest.
It was steep.
I mean, look, I heard you climbing Everest, and I didn't realize what climbing Everest is all about. Like, I mean, I knew it's a big mountain, and people refer to it as Everest, and it's this huge thing, but I didn't realize it's a thing
huge piece of land.
I mean, I didn't realize it's a thing where the landmarks. I mean, I was fascinated to learn this. There's a landmark on Mount Everest called Green Boots, right? And Green Boots is a landmark named Green Boots because there's a climber that died at that particular spot, and it was just not worthwhile to remove their body from the mountain. So the climber's been snowed over and just the green boots are sticking out, and that's a landmark. And I didn't realize that there were like bodies scattered all over, and that if you climb Everest, there's a big chance that you might not come back in one piece, or you might not come back at all those kinds of things.
Few pieces.
So why did you do it, and what happened? Tell us about it.
So I went to base camp 2022, August, November 2022. And I've spoken about this a lot, like in other interviews on the radio and stuff like that. But for the sake of your listeners, our listeners, I'll tell the story again. Base camp was challenging. It was hectic.
Yeah.
You land at Lakla Airport and you got to hike for 10 days.
Yeah.
It was a very strenuous hike up to base camp. And eventually, when I got to base camp, there's this big rock there.
Yeah.
And it says base camp, 5,800 and whatever, 34 meters.
Yeah.
And then there was even a picture of a penis drawn,
Okay.
like graffiti on there. And I was like, no way, this cannot be what we hiked up all of these days for.
Okay.
And it was a particularly cloudy day.
Yeah, so you got to hike up just to get to base camp.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. For days.
10 days. Yeah.
Sheesh.
You're doing like maybe 12, 13 kilometers a day.
Okay.
And
wow.
so we got there and I was like frustrated at that time. And I was like, oh, this can't be it. This is like an anticlimax. So far in the distance, maybe about another 4 or 5 kilometers, I saw that there were tents there.
Mm.
And then I had my drone with me. So I thought, let me go and try and drone closer to this thing. So my climbing, they're not called Sherpas. He's like a climbing associate or whatever you want to call him. They're responsible for you. So he was like, okay, come, we can go closer and go closer. So I went, started droning. We're about now a kilometer away from this thing. And as I got closer, I'm looking at the screen on the drone. I can see that there's people at the camp and the one guy is like waving and he's like doing this, like doing that.
So Yak is just gesticulating, like he's saying, come closer. For the listeners.
Gesticulating.
For the listeners, Yak was,
yeah.
The guy was telling you to come closer with your drone.
Yes, yeah. And then, so that's actually a good observation. Maybe he was telling the drone to come closer.
Yeah.
So I took that as he wanted me to go.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Revelation. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, maybe.
So this guy is now gesturing towards you to come, or saying to you, come towards.
Well, that's what I thought. I thought he meant that he wanted me to come. So I was excited about this. So I didn't even bother landing the drone. I just called my climbing guy, and I was like, look, he wants us to come closer. And I mean, it's these guys' responsibility to keep you alive now. So they don't want you to go anywhere near there because you're getting closer and closer to the ice shelf.
Yeah.
So he was like, no, come, let's go back. And by that time, I was already like 100 meters in front of him. I was already motioning to to base camp proper. And eventually I got there and I met the lead Sherpa there. His name is Tenji Sherpa. Such a hospitable experience. He took me into their actual tents, the climbing tents. He took me into the mess, their kitchen. And I made us some tea and we sat down. And it was just an amazing experience. They were taking this Polish team. It was a forward expedition for the Polish team to go up to just Camp 3 because they wanted to ski down from Camp 3 to Camp 2. And we had a phenomenal experience. We left there and that was the experience that I actually wanted. I wanted to get that
because this was base camp.
Because it was just base camp. And like, he could see that I was very interested at that stage. And he was like, no, why don't you come back? We should come back and climb and whatever it is. And then he took the two-way radio signal of my my climbing guy. And we went back down to the next village, which was Tingboche. And then that evening, he radioed my climbing buddy. And then he was like, why don't you take this guy and go to Loboche East Peak?
Okay.
So Loboche East it's like a qualifier, an Everest qualifier at 6,119 meters, I think, and to be corrected. But he was like, take him up there, he'll arrange all the permits and whatever it is. So we did. The next day, we climbed Loboche East.
Okay.
And
so basically you qualified.
Yeah. So, and I thought to myself, wow, this is actually not that strenuous. It wasn't that bad. But then after all of the effort that it took to actually just get to base camp, the climbing up there, it wasn't that technical. So it was actually okay. And then I thought to myself, oh, maybe Everest wouldn't be that bad because it was just a seed that he planted in my head. Then him and I stayed in contact for the next month, 2 months or so. And then, that's when I decided that, okay, maybe I should go try it out.
And then you climbed Everest in 2020, what was it, 2020?
Last year, 2023.
And that was the deadliest year in the history of Everest.
Yeah, it was the deadliest year. They had the most amount of deaths in history. There was 18 in total.
The South African healthcare worker or something. Am I right?
Yeah, he once lived in South Africa. He was
Oh.
an anesthetist.
Okay.
But there was a heart attack, I think, at Camp 2.
Okay.
Mm.
And then do you want to do the long story short thing? Because I'm sure, as you mentioned, there's been podcasts and you've been.
Yeah, no,
I'm sure you're
I think
tired
we'll
of-
have to probably have our own
yeah,
podcast
I'm sure you're
about
tired
that
of talking about that
specific
story.
stuff.
But I mean, long story short.
Yeah, long story short, had a severe weather window. We were at the Hillary Step.
Hillary Step is like 50 meters away from summit.
Yeah, it's about 100, 150.
You can see it.
There.
You can throw a stone at it if you want.
Yeah, we got a good arm.
Yeah.
But yeah, then changing oxygen tanks, that's when we needed to, that's our only availability to change the tank because the width is between you and me.
Shush.
Then there's a drop on the other side into China or Tibet, and then there's a drop on this side to Nepal. So you're going to die if you try and attempt to change tanks at any other stage. And that's when we checked our tank, and my Sherpa at that stage realized that one of the tanks were empty. So, because the regulator was broken.
Mm.
So yeah, we had to make a tough decision to get back down to Camp 4. And then at that stage, you think, okay, right, you'll probably have a second summit bid. So Camp 4 is a dead zone. You're not meant to be in that area for more than 24 hours.
Okay.
Due to lack of oxygen. And I get down to Camp 4, and then long story short, that's when frostbite started setting in my right hand.
Yeah.
I didn't know at that stage it was frostbite. I mean, I just thought that, okay, it was very cold, and in all honesty, your whole body is numb.
Yeah.
And there's this pain everywhere. But you have a reduced amount of mobility in your hand. And from a technical climb perspective, you got to have a lot of mobility because the stuff you use to descend, like the descender, the Jumma, and all your belays and everything, you need to have a little bit of finesse in order to unclip and clip and
like
use
fine motor skills,
apparel.
basically.
Yeah. So yeah, I was asked to. I mean, you got to be at that stage be evacuated, and I had to climb back down through the night to Camp 3.
Sheesh. Yeah.
That was very, very daunting. Because you're climbing in the dark. You're not meant to be out at that time. No one's meant to be out in the night between Camp 3 and Camp 4. And you're rappelling into darkness the whole time.
And this is the place where, as I said, there's like dead bodies scattered everywhere.
Yeah.
And people just get left. So surely all of those things are on your mind also, right? As you're doing all of this. Or not really, you can't think.
No, not really, eh? I mean,
Okay.
I think by that stage, there's all the adrenaline's gone from your body. You just basically look one step to the next, like 1 foot in front of the other, or 1 foot behind the other, because you're going in reverse backwards.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, then you got to Camp 3. It was probably about 11 o'clock at night, and we had to wait it out. Now, logistically, there's nothing there available to sustain you till the next night. No oxygen, no food, nothing that there was. And I don't think I told this story out in public, but the only thing that we had at that stage, because we hadn't accommodated for everything else, I had Woolies jelly beans.
Yeah.
So we were put in this tent, about 3 or 4 other random climbers, but one of the other climbers that I knew that was there was Narendra. His name is Narendra, the Indian climber.
Yeah.
And we both were starving. Like, we just kept asking like for food. If there's anyone have food, and no one was responding. Eventually, I found this little bag of jelly beans that were packed.
Woolies jelly beans, yeah.
Yeah. So the only thing you have is gas
and
a little burner. So took snow from the outside. We melted the snow. We emptied the whole jelly bean container into that, and we basically dissolved the jelly bean into this thing, and we all drank
like an energy drink type of thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
okay.
We had jelly bean water.
Yeah.
And that was what
resourceful. You guys were resourceful even in trying circumstances.
Yeah. When in those circumstances, I think if you're not resourceful, you are short of death.
Right.
So he lost his right foot. Unfortunately. But the next day I got helivaced out of there, and
like a helicopter comes and takes you.
Yeah, it was a long line rescue.
Yeah,
it's currently on a nomination list for the Guinness World Book of Records for the highest helicopter long line in history.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the previous record was called the Human Sling Operation of Annapurna in 2013.
So you might be a record breaker, is what you're saying in all of
Maybe.
this. Okay.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was 6,800 meters. This was at 7,300 meters.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I had to submit the GoPro and everything for verification.
Oh,
And apparently I can win a prize,
okay. That'll
like
be
money.
interesting.
You have to declare
I mean,
that.
the listeners won't know this, but the whole time you've been sitting here, there's a glove on your right hand, right?
Mhm.
So fast forward after you've been, I mean, what's happened? If you're comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, I'll talk about it. I haven't verbalized it in any of the recordings thus far, but I got back to South Africa. It was I was in hospital for a day, but I was discharged. I had the best of the best people working on me. Roger Nicholson. I'm hoping he watches this.
Yeah.
But there was
Who's he?
he's
hand
a
surgeon.
hand plastic surgeon.
Okay, yeah.
So
Shout out to him, yeah.
Yeah, so we actually just had to wait for something called demarcation to happen, which is basically to see what the level of your hand, either rejuvenation or death's going to be.
Okay.
So we just had to wait about a month and a half, and then we called it. We needed to book surgery, and subsequently lost 4 fingers partially.
Yeah, on your right hand.
On my
as a
right
dentist.
hand. Yeah. So I mean that was challenging, but a lot of people tell me, and
Sounds devastating. I mean, you're putting it mildly.
yeah, and I was okay with it, because what my hand actually looks like at that stage is it turned into bone. All of this was black, and there's a video that I have that I don't want to post on social media or anything for fear of freaking everyone out. But I was just doing this on a laptop, and it sounds like metal on metal.
Oh, okay.
I think I showed you that video.
Yeah, I remember that. It sounds like a hard thing on a hard thing. Yeah.
But it's basically bone on bone. It wasn't painful pre-amputation, but I think post-amputation, especially changing the dressing, I had to prep myself for it. The first couple of times they took me in to change the dressings, but it's basically bone that's exposed.
Yeah.
And the whole irony about all of this and the surgery time, and I must thank my sister and my family and everyone, and Keshi as well, because this is my cousin. She happened to be on call in theatre that day, and so she actually assisted with the surgery, and it
Santed Mediclinic, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it was a harrowing experience, but I don't know. I mean, look, you have mandated trauma counseling and everything afterwards, which she basically said, yeah, look, everything is fine, you're okay. But I guess I am a resilient person, but I don't know to what degree.
But you bounced back like ridiculously, like, which is a testament to your strength.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, well, yeah, that's the story, and that's why we were referring to dentistry in the past tense, this whole and the practice of dentistry. Okay, let's wrap up now. I don't even know how long this has been. I want to do a lightning round first, and then
bring on the time.
We asked the followers and the people that subscribe to the channel to submit questions, and I'll just give you a couple, and then I want to wrap up with my last question, which might end up being the last question that I ask every guest on this pod. I'm not sure. So let's do the lightning round first. Root canal or crown prep?
Definitely crown prep.
Maritzburg or Mauritius?
Mauritius.
No water at home for a day or no Wi-Fi at home for a day?
No Wi-Fi.
Morning coffee or evening tea?
Morning coffee.
Solo travel or group trip?
Solo travel.
Pizza with or without pineapple?
With?
With pineapple. You're a pro pineapple person.
Doesn't faze me. Imagine if there's masala and there's pineapple.
I mean, your instinctive response was with, so that's just, I mean, I disagree with you there. Movies or series?
Movies.
Okay. Braces or clear aligners?
That's a loaded question. Clear aligners.
Yeah, well, you would say that.
Well, it depends.
That's a plug for Elton, but it's okay.
Yeah, but
your mentor. Okay. I've got more, but I want to wrap it up. There's a couple of questions from followers. So Sayurika Mudley asks, does your mental health get affected negatively while maintaining and being great? So clearly she thinks you're great. But
okay, that's good.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, that's a question.
Yeah. Does it get affected negatively while trying to be awesome, I guess? Or stay awesome?
Yeah, definitely. I think mental health gets affected even when you're not great. Mental health is something that is ongoing and it needs to be checked.
So how do you do
quite regularly?
She hasn't asked this, but I'm asking. I mean, how do you keep it in check? And do you read? Do you?
I think it's also with the people you have around you that you can be your authentic self with, number one, but also they can be as authentic as they can with you in order to, because it's difficult. You can't, mental health is such a thing that it just creeps up on you and you don't even know when it's there. So if certain people that you have around you can be vested in you enough to call you out on, the bullshit, then
okay, so it's your relationships.
It's a relationships and people you have around you. Yeah.
Dr. Kiasha Ayalu wants to know what's next on your bucket list.
Yeah, another loaded question. Yeah, things I can't and can disclose, but
okay, well that sounds juicy.
There's with my hand, I can't mention companies and everything at this stage, although a lot of people know it anyway. But there is a move. There is a how would I phrase this? I'm going to be embarking on a R&D sort of development to try and rehabilitate my hand.
Okay.
And it is quite futuristic, and it is I emphasize R&D. Yeah. So it also just depends on when they call me up and what I have to do. Thus far, there have been developments which I was surprised by, and I'm looking forward to that. And then subsequent to that, there's a lot of other stuff that I actually want to do. But,
okay, well, you're keeping it close to your chest. That's fine.
Yeah.
Now, because why did I become a doctor / dentist / clinician? If I'm going to end off by asking you, like, if somebody came to you now and said, Yak, I'm thinking of getting into dentistry, and they ask you, what would you say about it? Would you give advice? What advice would you give to this person that comes to you and says, I want to do dentistry?
Well, as per the undertone of our whole conversation, it would be nothing to do with dentistry.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask them, what do you want from dentistry? Or are you good? Well, maybe I would ask them, do you see yourself as being a good dentist? But I'd go back to those fundamental principles of like the ikigai. Do you love dentistry? What do you love about dentistry? Do you see yourself making money from dentistry that we touched on? Do you see, like, if you're planning to practice in South Africa, what the world needs? Do you think that South Africa needs more dentists with NHI coming about and all of these, factors that you need to actually incorporate? So if the person answers all of that favorably in favor of dentistry, then I would say definitely go for it, because you can make the most out of it because you vested very well in what it is that you enjoy.
Well, that sounds like a very good way to approach it, and it's like a coaching type of question where you're asking them and letting them figure it out. But anyway, Yak, thank you so much for taking a chance.
No further questions.
Thanks a lot for taking a chance. Hopefully I edit this and make it look okay.
Yeah, make us look nice.
And thanks so much for your time, man. And thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Sweet.
Who's that?
Hello?
Good timing.
Oh, namaskaram. I'm opening.
Namaskaram.